Hey everybody, this is Matt from endsickness.org. Today I'm going to talk about how your mast cells respond to your perception and your inner narrative that's going on. First, let me say I'm not a medical doctor. It's not medical advice. It's based on my personal experiences for informational and educational purposes only. So how do your mast cells respond to your perception? Well, the reality is the symptoms that you've experienced in your life when you've had traumatic events happen that have been extreme, like, all of your body, you feel, like when I would see my daughter struggle and her eyes would cross or something, and I would just have the life sucked out of me, my heart would accelerate, all these things. All of those symptoms that you had from trauma or observations in your life of anything, those symptoms were experienced because of your perception, and then your perception went ahead and told your immune system to respond and create a cascade of all these molecules to go ahead and react to your perception or your observation. So the reality is your perception of things affects your immune system, it affects your mast cells. And if you're in a situation where you're always perceiving fear, danger, threats, concern, projecting something in the future that could go wrong, you're thinking about the past, you're thinking about looking at things and they're reminding you that you're still sick, all these observations that you're having. If you have these storylines attached to the observations, what happens is you end up then getting these feelings that come on because the immune system responds with this chronic inflammation that occurs because the immune system feels threatened. And you have this cellular trauma that's existing. And unless you go ahead and change your perception or your inner narrative, then you're going to continue to observe things in a way that feels threatening. And if you continue to observe them in that manner where they feel threatening or they feel like things aren't working out for you, or you feel like you're not doing in the right situation or whatever it is there, you're going to have stress that's going to go ahead and be created because the immune system is going to perceive this and then release these inflammatory molecules, the cytokines, the histamine specifically, the prostaglandins, the other inflammatory molecules that aggravate the neurological system. And when you have inflammation in the neurological system, you have deficiency in neurotransmitters. When you have a deficiency in neurotransmitters, you have an alteration in the mood. And this is what happens. This is how it works, So your perception initially leads your immune system to create the inflammatory molecules that alter the neurotransmitter balance, which leads you in a situation where you're perceiving things even further in a more complex, difficult manner. And then you're in this perception that things are not working out for you, when in fact, they are working out for you. It's just your immune system has been perceiving that there's a threat because you've been telling it that it's a threat in your mind, and it's then sending out these molecules and reinforcing the same pattern over and over and over again. So if you want to beat this, you got to realize that a lot of mast cell activation is in your perspective, in your inner narrative. You got to change the inner narrative. You got to be expecting that you're going to get better. You got to say, okay, as long as I eat the right foods, as long as I do my meditations, as long as I'm in a house that isn't moldy, as long as I'm not surrounded by synthetic chemicals, as long as I'm not taking a bunch of synthetic supplements, as long as I'm using the right plant-based nutrients to heal, I'm going to be better. I know it. I can feel it. You got to connect with God. You got to create a relationship with a higher power, because if you don't have a relationship with higher power, how can you have the faith? How can you have the belief? How can you really know for sure? Trust me, that's very, very critical. So thanks for watching, everybody. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. My website is endsickness.org. I got hundreds of articles, hundreds of videos on there teaching how to heal yourself. Take care.